What happened was true. The most bizarre and brutal series of crimes
There are disasters that happen without witnesses, and then there are disasters that unfold in full view and still manage to feel unreal. On the night of February 20th, 2003, 462 people were packed into a small nightclub in West Warwick, Rhode Island. It was a successful and routine show. Loud music, low ceilings, dim lighting, nothing out of the ordinary. But 90 seconds later, 100 people were dead. The station nightclub fire remains one of the deadliest fires in modern American history. But not because it was unavoidable, but because it was preventable, invisible from beginning to end, and most of all, recorded. Unlike many tragedies, this one did not rely on reconstruction or survivor testimony alone. A television news crew was inside the club that night filming a routine segment on nightlife of local bands. The camera was already rolling when the fire began. There was no delay, no cutaway, no warning. What followed is one of the most disturbing real-time records of human disaster ever captured. At 11:07 p.m., indoor pyrotechnics ignited foam insulation surrounding the stage. Within seconds, flames climbed the walls and spread across the ceiling, not slowly, not gradually, but explosively. The footage shows what the human brain struggles to accept. Fire moving faster than people. Within 20 seconds, the entire stage area was engulfed with thick black smoke as it rolled across the ceiling and dropped with terrifying speed, suffocating everyone below. Visibility vanished almost immediately. At first, people didn't run, they watched. Some clapped thinking it was part of the show, others hesitated, unsure if the fire was even real. And that hesitation, captured on video, clearly cost them their lives. As the fire intensified, panic replaced confusion. The camera operator turned towards the exit. That's when the reality of the situation became undeniable. Nearly everyone rushed towards the same door, the main entrance, and it formed a bottleneck instantly. Available footage shows people pressing forward, bodies piling into the narrow exit corridor. Those who fell were immediately buried under others and trampled who had no other room to stop. The crowd didn't surge forward, it locked in place. And that's when the smoke really hit. And not light smoke like a haze, but thick toxic fumes that rendered people unconscious within seconds, sapping the oxygen right from them. The camera continues to record as visibility drops to near zero. Shapes move blindly and hands reach out. People scream for friends, for help, for space, and then the screaming thins out. And that's because smoke inhalation works quickly. The cameraman barely escapes as he stumbles outside, gasping. Flames erupt through the roof behind him. Less than 5 minutes have passed since the fire started, but inside, it's already over. There's additional footage as well, far more disturbing footage of people discovering the charred remains of others inside. What makes the station fire different isn't just the speed or the death toll, it's the clarity. The footage shows exactly how modern crowd disasters happen, and exactly when the fire began, and totally consumed the area. These disasters happen not through chaos, but through normal human behavior under stress. People go where they entered, and people don't exactly think clearly when they're panicking and running for their lives in a massive crowd. They follow familiar paths, and they hesitate. And to be fair, I don't think the building was meant to carry almost 500 people in capacity. The video shows exits that existed but weren't used. Side doors, bar exits, kitchen access points. Some were blocked, and maybe some weren't really marked well. The smoke probably played a role as well, but all of them do appear on inspection reports, and all of them failed in practice. After the fire, investigators reviewed the footage frame by frame. The foam insulation was never fire rated, the pyrotechnics were unauthorized, and capacity limits were ignored. Safety enforcement was minimal. Nothing about the disaster was mysterious, and somehow that makes the footage even harder to watch. In the years that followed, the video became evidence and education material, a warning. All at once, fire departments used it in training, safety advocates referenced it relentlessly, lawsuits relied on it heavily, but only a portion of the footage is widely circulated, in which we see the full recordings, longer uncut, showing the crowd compressions, the loss of movement, the movement when escape becomes impossible or rarely shown publicly. Not because they lack relevance, it's because they're terrifying. There is no villain on screen, no dramatic collapse, and no singular fatal mistake. And that is why the station nightclub footage is so disturbing, because it does not let you distance yourself. You can see where people pause, you can see where they turn back, and you can see how quickly time runs out. It didn't need hours, it didn't need structural failure. The fire needed less than 2 minutes. The lost Spanish flu footage. There are catastrophes so immense that they leave scars on history. And then there are those that leave nothing at all. In 1918, a virus spread across the world faster than any army, killing an estimated 50 to 100 million people. Entire cities shut down. Hospitals collapsed under the weight of the dying. Mass graves became routine. And this was not an isolated tragedy. It was a global extinction-level event at its time. And yet, despite occurring during the height of early film documentation, almost no moving footage of the Spanish flu exists today. Not because cameras weren't present, they were everywhere. By 1918, motion picture crews were embedded within military units, hospitals, and government agencies. The First World War was being extensively filmed. Trenches, corpses, amputations, and executions. None of it was considered too disturbing to record, and the record confirms it. Influenza wards were filmed. Emergency hospitals were filmed. Overflow tents filled with dying civilians were filmed. These reels were logged, cataloged, and referenced in official archives, but somehow they disappeared. Film cans remain with no reels inside. Archive cards reference footage that no longer exists. Entire segments from late 1918 are simply missing, often marked with vague terms like withdrawn, restricted, or unfit for release. This pattern repeats across multiple countries, multiple institutions, and multiple archives. This was not random decay. The official explanation is morale control. Governments were already fighting a war, and footage of civilians drowning in their own lungs would have caused mass hysteria, so the reels were withheld and quietly destroyed. But that explanation doesn't fully account for what eyewitnesses described. Doctors and nurses recorded scenes that bordered on inhumane. Victims turned dark blue from oxygen deprivation. Blood leaked from noses and mouths. Strong, healthy adults collapsed and died within hours. And entire wards screamed through the night as patients suffocated while fully conscious. One nurse simply wrote in her log, "They drowned while breathing." If this was captured on film, and all the evidence suggests it was, then releasing it would not have informed the public. It would have traumatized them. In the 1970s, rumors surfaced among archivists of a single surviving reel. Unlabeled, no title card, no narration, just raw footage of the hospital corridor lined with bodies, some still moving, nurses with blood-soaked masks, a man convulsing as orderlies held him down. Those who claimed to see it said it was never meant to be shown. The reel allegedly vanished within weeks. No public acknowledgement, no confirmation, but no denial. Today, the Spanish flu exists almost entirely as numbers, statistics, death tolls, textbook summaries. It has no defining image, no universally recognized footage, unlike every other major catastrophe that followed. Some historians believe this absence is deliberate, because images don't fade the way numbers do. Once seen, they can't be forgotten. Archives around the world remain partially uncatalogued. Private collections still hold reels untouched for decades. It is possible, however unlikely, that the footage still does exist out there somewhere, sealed away, unseen, forgotten. And if it were found today, it likely would never be released by the government if it were in their hands. Not because it lacks historical value, but because it might just be too real. The Spanish flu killed more people than any single event in modern history, and yet it left behind almost no moving images, no faces, no final breaths, no recorded screams. Only silence. Whether by decay or design, or intentional eradication, the footage has vanished, and perhaps that is the most unsettling part of all. Not that it's gone, but that someone somewhere decided it should be. The Indian Ocean Tsunami. There are disasters that announce themselves with fire, noise, and warning. And then there are those that arrive in silence. On December 26, 2004, the Earth itself ruptured beneath the Indian Ocean. A magnitude 9.1 earthquake, the third largest ever recorded, tore open the seafloor off the coast of Sumatra. The planet shifted on its axis, and the ocean pulled back, but then it came back wrong. Within hours, waves traveling at the speed of a jetliner struck 14 countries. Entire coastlines were erased, towns vanished, families disappeared mid-sentence. By the time the water receded, more than 230,000 people were recorded dead or missing. It remains one of the deadliest natural disasters in human history. And unlike most catastrophes of this scale, it was captured extensively on camera. Some say too extensively. In 2004, consumer camcorders, early digital cameras, hotel CCTV systems, and tourist recordings were everywhere. Beach resorts were full. Holiday footage was rolling. Surveillance cameras watched coastlines in real time. The tsunami was filmed from every angle possible, and much of it was uploaded to the internet. And yet at the same time, much of what was recorded has never been seen, not publicly or officially. Within days of the disaster, news outlets aired carefully selected clips. Distant waves, people running, buildings collapsing from afar, sanitized destruction, wide shots, survivable moments. But that's not all that made it out there, that is out there. Witnesses, survivors, journalist aid workers described far, far worse footage. Raw recordings of people being pulled apart by debris, children ripped from their parents' hands, entire crowds swept into the ocean in seconds, and so many bodies piled up in the aftermath. Some of these videos circulated online, as I discussed previously, but a lot of them were removed from other sites, but some of them were never released at all. Governments cited dignity, broadcasters cited ethics, and platforms cited their policies. And the pattern was consistent. The closer the footage got to the human cost, the faster it vanished. Hotel security systems captured lobbies filling with seawater and corpses. Coastal CCTV recorded streets turning into mass graves. Amateur footage showed people clinging to rooftops as others were crushed below them. Some aid workers later stated that they were instructed not to release certain recordings, not to copy them, and not to discuss them. The justification was trauma prevention, but the reality was control. Because the tsunami didn't just kill people, it exposed how fragile modern life actually is. No warning systems, no evacuation plans, no time to react. Entire governments rendered useless in minutes. The ocean didn't discriminate, it didn't pause, it didn't retreat when people begged, and some of what it did was never meant to be watched by human eyes. In the years that followed, researchers attempting to study raw tsunami footage noticed gaps, files referenced but missing, camera IDs with no corresponding video, CCTV archives overwritten or destroyed despite being historically invaluable. Some footage was reportedly seized during recovery operations. Other recordings were quietly classified or buried under legal restrictions. But why? It's not because they lacked importance. It's because it showed too much. The footage would show panic without heroism, death without narrative, suffering without resolution. The kind of footage that some seek out of curiosity, but it doesn't quite educate. It haunts. Today, the 2004 tsunami is remembered through memorials, documentaries, and anniversary coverage carefully framed, carefully paced. A tragedy reduced to timelines and aerial shots. But the visual record, the screams, the confusion, the bodies carried inland and never reclaimed, remains fragmented, suppressed, or lost. The tsunami lasted minutes. Its aftermath lasted years. And some of what happened in those waves still exists only in footage no one is willing to show. Not because it isn't real, but because once you see it, you can never pretend it was just water again. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. There are places on this planet where people disappear quietly, and then there are places that return the dead altered. In February of 1959, 9 experienced Soviet hikers entered the northern Ural Mountains. All were young, all were physically fit, all were trained in winter survival. Several were engineers, one was a war veteran, another was a competitive skier. None of them were inexperienced. None of them were reckless. But none of them survived. What followed became one of the most disturbing and fascinating unresolved cases of the 20th century. An incident so unnatural in its details that decades later, no single explanation can account for everything that was found. The group, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, set out on a winter expedition to reach Mount Ortitan. Conditions were brutal, but within their capacity. Conditions were brutal, but within their capability. They carried proper gear, documented their journey meticulously, and kept detailed journals and photographs up until the very end. On February 1st, 1959, they pitched their tent on the slope of the mountain, known to the local Mountsy people as Kolatsakil, translated simply as Dead Mountain. And that night, something happened. What it was remains unknown. When the hikers failed to return on schedule, a search party was sent weeks later. What they found did not resemble the aftermath of an accident, however. It looked like an attack. The tent was discovered first and it was still standing, but it had been cut open, but from the inside. Not unzipped, not torn by wind, cut. The group had fled their shelter barefoot or in socks, many leaving behind boots, coats, and survival equipment, despite sub-zero temperatures capable of killing within minutes. This was not a controlled evacuation. It was a panic. Footprints led away from the tent in an orderly but unmistakable trail, 9 sets descending the mountain toward a tree line. No signs of pursuit, no evidence of a struggle, just people walking calmly after doing something completely irrational. First 2 bodies were found beneath a large cedar tree. They were barefoot, dressed only in underwear. Their hands were burned and broken, as if they attempted to climb a tree in desperation. Between the tree and the tent lay 3 more bodies, Dyatlov being among them, positioned as if they had tried to return, but they never made it. Weeks later, after the snow began to melt, the remaining 4 were found in a ravine, buried under several meters of snow. And that's when the case stopped making sense completely. These 4 specifically showed injuries consistent with high-impact trauma, crushed ribs, massive internal damage, skull fractures, but there were no external wounds, no signs of a fight, no animal attacks, no avalanche debris. Lyudmila Dabydinia was missing her tongue, her eyes were gone, and portions of her face were destroyed. Officially, this was attributed to scavenging animals, but her injuries occurred before death. And then there was the radiation. Several articles of clothing tested positive for abnormal radioactive contamination. Not trace amounts, levels significant enough to be noted in a closed Soviet investigation, but there was no reactor nearby, no official military activity acknowledged in the area, no explanation provided. The Soviet authorities closed the case quickly. The final conclusion read simply, the hikers died due to compelling a natural force. No clarification, no follow-up. Photographs recovered from the hikers' cameras deepen the mystery. The final images show nothing overly threatening, snow, trees, blurred lights in the distance, but some of frames appear damaged or distorted as if exposed to extreme conditions or interference. One photograph taken shortly before the incident shows an indistinct shape in the sky. Others show hikers behaving normally right up until the final night. There is no gradual escalation, no warning, just a sudden break in reality, and of course theories followed. Avalanche, infrasound-induced panic, military weapons testing, parachute mines, katabatic winds, and secret experiments. Each explains part of the incident, but none of it explains it all. An avalanche does not cause internal injuries without surface trauma and leave a tent standing. Infrasound does not explain radiation. Military tests do not explain missing tongues or orderly footprints. And no natural phenomenon explains why 9 rational experienced people would slash their own shelter open and flee to their certain death. Over the years, locals reported seeing glowing red spheres in the sky around the time of the incident. Military documents later confirmed unexplained aerial phenomena in the region during that period, but no connection was officially made. 9 people entered the mountains, none returned, and what was found in them afterwards wasn't just death. It was interruption, as if something arrived, something unseen, and forced them out of their own reality, leaving behind evidence that doesn't align with any known sequence of cause and effect. The mountain didn't kill them slowly. It expelled them. The Paradise Fire footage. There are disasters that happen in the distance, and then there are disasters that happen point blank through a windshield, through a phone camera, through the eyes of the people who don't make it out in time. On the morning of November 8th, 2018, the town of Paradise, California, ceased to exist. In less than 4 hours, a wildfire driven by extreme winds and prolonged drought consumed an entire community. More than 18,000 structures were destroyed, 85 people were killed, and tens of thousands fled through the streets that were already burning. It was not a slow disaster, it was a sudden and total collapse. And unlike most fires of this scale, it was recorded, continuously, relentlessly, and from the inside of the event itself. The campfire did not leave behind just ash. It left behind footage, so much of it. By 2018, nearly everyone carried a camera. Dash cams were standard, cell phones were always recording, police body cams, security cameras, doorbells, traffic cameras, and CCTV footage everywhere captured the evacuation in real time. The fire did not arrive quietly, it arrived screaming. What many people don't realize is that the most disturbing Paradise footage was never meant to be in documentation. It wasn't journalism. It wasn't a warning. It was people documenting survival. Video shows residents driving through tunnels of flame, embers raining down the sideways like sparks from a grinder. Visibility reduced to nothing, trees exploding from internal heat, and power lines collapsing into the road ahead. Some recordings end abruptly, but others continue for far too long. In several clips you can hear people praying, crying, and and apologizing to no one in particular. Parents instruct children to keep their eyes closed. Drivers beg their engines not to stall. There are moments when the fire overtakes the road entirely, and the only thing separating life from death is whether the car keeps moving. And some cars didn't. After the fire, dozens of vehicles were found abandoned along evacuation routes. Doors open, keys inside melted into the asphalt. In many cases, remains were either found inside or nearby. And those moments do exist on camera. But most of them have never been widely shown. In the immediate aftermath, local news aired brief segments of dashcam footage, carefully selected, partially obscured by smoke, cut before the worst moments, enough to convey danger but not enough to convey inevitability, because inevitability is much more frightening. Some of the raw footage circulated online, shaky phone videos uploaded by survivors, clips passed between first responders, unedited body cam recordings showing officers driving directly into neighborhoods that were already unsalvageable. Many of those videos seem to have just disappeared. Accounts deleted, clips removed, links broken. Officially, this was a way to protect the privacy and dignity of the victims, right? That seems logical, but it's not true. Because the Paradise footage doesn't just show death, it shows failure. Evacuation routes that were never designed for full town escape, fire warnings that came too late, infrastructure that collapsed instantly under real conditions, people trapped not by flame, but by planning assumptions that no longer applied. In several recordings, emergency vehicles are forced to abandon rescues because the heat becomes unbearable. Officers are seen sheltering civilians behind fire engines as houses ignite around them. The fire moves far faster than protocol, faster than expectation, faster than response. Body cam footage from the morning shows law enforcement realizing live on camera that they cannot save everyone. There is no narration, no commentary, just breathing, radio chatter, and just the sound of fire consuming an entire town block by block. Some first responders later described the experience as disorienting, not because they hadn't trained for fire, but because the scale was beyond comprehension. Paradise didn't just burn, it seemingly detonated. Entire neighborhoods ignited at once due to wind-driven embers, creating a firestorm effect that erased familiar landmarks in minutes. People who had lived on the same street for decades became lost in their own town. Footage shows drivers passing houses that appear intact only for them to erupt into flames seconds later. Some people escaped because they turned left instead of right. Others died because traffic stopped for 30 seconds. And in every single recording uploaded from this fire, that randomness is present. And it's unbearable. Much like other incidences we've already discussed, the campfire is remembered through aerial shots of destruction, before and after comparisons, burn maps and rebuilding plans, and somber imagery. Clean images, controlled imagery. But the real visual record, the unbroken dashcam drives, the body cam footage where the fire outruns the evacuation, and the phone videos that end in smoke and screaming, is the real reality we have to face. The Lost World Trade Center cameras. Some events are documented so thoroughly that every second seems accounted for, and yet, when you look closer, entire pieces of the record are missing. September 11th, 2001 is often described as the most recorded day in human history. Hundreds of cameras, thousands of angles, news crews, tourists, office workers, security cameras, traffic feeds, everyone was watching, and yet there are gaps, and not small ones. If you've noticed, there's only a handful of clips that you can really see out there, really to speak of, given all the surveillance. The World Trade Center complex was saturated with cameras. Lobby surveillance, elevator cameras, parking garages, exterior security feeds, port authority systems, private tenants, retail spaces, and rooftop access points. But most of that footage has never been released. Some of it is never acknowledged. and some of it only appears as fragments, seconds long, low resolution and unexplained. One such fragment has quietly circulated for years, a video showing a man, silhouetted, appearing to hold a camcorder inside the World Trade Center complex. Not outside, not across the street, but inside. The clip is brief, grainy, often reposted without context. The man is visible for only a moment, framed against the scale of the towers and the chaos unfolding around them. He appears pretty calm though, upright, purposeful, and he appears to be filming. The footage itself does not confirm who he is. It does not confirm where the camera capturing him is located, and it doesn't confirm the time down to the second. But what unsettles people isn't what the clip shows, it's what it implies. Because if someone inside the complex was recording, consciously and deliberately, then that footage did exist at one point. And if that footage still exists, it has never been made public. The official visual record of 9/11 focuses overwhelmingly on the exterior. Planes, impacts, fireballs, collapses, dust clouds rolling through Manhattan. But inside footage is almost non-existent. We still have photographs, we have radio transmissions, and we have survivor testimony. But we do not have sustained video from inside the towers after impact. Not from the stairwells, the offices, the observation decks, not from the security systems that, by all normal standards, should have been recording. The Port Authority has acknowledged that numerous cameras were operating that morning. Many feeds were reportedly lost when infrastructure failed. Others were seized as evidence, some were classified, others destroyed. Which category each camera fell into has never been fully disclosed. But what we do know is that certain recordings were reviewed by investigators but never officially released to the public, not even in heavily redacted form. The explanation given is familiar: sensitivity, privacy, respect for the dead. And again, that explanation isn't entirely false, but it is incomplete. It shows which systems worked and which ones didn't, and it shows really what happened from the inside of the building. The man with the camcorder exists as a problem in the record, a human anomaly in the dataset that insists no such footage should exist. He is not identified, he is not contextualized, and he is not referenced in any official reports. He simply appears and then disappears. Some people believe that the clip is misinterpreted and the object isn't a camcorder at all. That perspective and the compression distort what we think we're seeing in the moment being overanalyzed, and that is probable. But the thing is, theoretically, with that many people in the building, if that man wasn't filming, others surely were. Tourists visited observation decks daily, office workers carried consumer cameras, security personnel monitored feeds, and news crews were already nearby, and yet the interior visual record collapses into silence. Some recordings were reportedly shown to family members in private settings, and then sealed again. Others are rumored to exist only as transcripts. No images, no frames, just descriptions. But the absence has become its own artifact, a negative space in the historical record where something should be, and that's why the man holding the camcorder matters, not because he proves a conspiracy, but because he represents the possibility that the most important footage ever recorded was never meant to be seen. Footage that would show the inside of the event, not the spectacle, but the experience, the decisions, the confusions, the last attempts to understand what was happening. There is a difference between witnessing an impact and witnessing collapse from within. One is history, the other is terrifying and unbearable. The Gollum Goatman films. The Goatman, an American folklore, is usually dismissed as a campfire story. A creature with the body of a man and the face of a goat, haunting bridges and forest edges. Children are warned. Hikers laugh nervously. The story is entertaining, but absurd. But beneath the folklore there exists, or existed, a set of recordings so disturbing that they were almost immediately destroyed. They are known as the Gollum films. Unlike modern viral videos, these were reels. And they were not made for shock. They were amateur analog recordings on 8mm or 16mm film. Long static takes, uncut, observational. They were not horror, they were documentation. And that is what made them terrifying. According to accounts from alleged collectors, archivists, and insiders, the films show something that is almost human. It is humanoid in proportion. It walks on 2 legs. It stands upright. Yet nothing moves about it naturally. Limbs bend in ways they should not. Shoulders slouch oddly. Its head tilts in ways no human head should. And the most unsettling detail, it sometimes mimics human behavior, but poorly and awkwardly, like a recording attempting to repeat itself. The films themselves are lost, or well, nearly lost. Some reels were held privately by early Thelemite circles and regional filmmakers in the 1980s, as well as the early 1990s. They were never shown publicly, however. Reports claim that reels degraded, others were confiscated and destroyed, or recalled by unknown parties. No paper trail exists, no catalog, no titles, no credits. Only fragments remain. Descriptions, stories, and secondhand testimonies survive because people remember what they saw. It was hard to forget. The content of the films as described is chillingly consistent across all accounts. One reel reportedly shows a figure standing at the edge of a tree line. The camera is static. A human figure steps forward, but the proportions are slightly wrong. The head tilts, the figure stares. It does not run, it does not attack. It simply watches, and then it mimics a human voice. A name, a phrase, slightly off, poorly repeated. Another reel reportedly shows the figure in a barn. Indoors, seated, motionless, waiting and observing. The reel ends abruptly before the creature leaves the frame. No one knows who filmed these reels or why. What is clear is that someone saw it fit to destroy them, whether for religious reasons or just because it's too terrifying. Horror is rarely in the attack. Horror is in the pause, in the calm, in the thing that exists outside expectation. The Gollum films reportedly captured this static, calm footage of something that is not alive as we understand it, and in its observation, it's impossible to look away. Unlike other cryptid footage, there is no dramatization, no shaky camera, no chasing, no jump cuts. The films simply record. The figure moves or doesn't move on its own schedule. Sometimes it mirrors human movement. Sometimes it allegedly speaks, never fully coherent, always wrong and always uncanny. Collectors describe the films as haunting, not for what happens, but for what is allowed to be seen. The reels were rumored to have been destroyed intentionally. University archives and private collectors, occult libraries, sources claim the destruction was deliberate. No copies, no scans, only memory. Some theorize the films were destroyed because of the creature was being observed behaving in ways that humans could not safely contextualize. Others claim it was sacred or forbidden, and the recording was a violation of some sacred religious sect. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. The Gollum films do not exist in any public archives, and yet the memory of them persists, because even without the reels, the accounts are all consistent. The creature is tall, emaciated, slightly hunched. Its skin is pale and mottled, human-like but wrong. Its voice supposedly imitates but fails. Its posture mimics but fails. It exists, but it does not respond to fear. It does not flee. It simply observes and sometimes repeats. And that is why the story survives even without footage. Because the horror of the Gollum films is not in what you see, it is in what you know could have been recorded, and is now gone. The reels could have proved the existence of a defining cryptid, or a religious figure. They could have demonstrated the behavior of something that does not belong to human society. They could have settled the legend once and for all of the Goat Man. Instead, they were destroyed, lost, and erased. Where these films were allegedly recorded is up for debate. Some say it was at a farm in Missouri, where the famous Goat Man Bridge is, in Mississippi, in Louisiana, Kentucky, Georgia, Tennessee. But where it was recorded doesn't necessarily matter. All that remains are descriptions, whispers, and stories now of what was seen, and what could never be shown. There is no public evidence, no surviving frames, only the memory of observers, only the acknowledgement in writings that something existed, watched, and perhaps recorded is now gone, which in itself is enough to disturb. Because some of the things that are lost are not lost by accident. They are lost because they cannot safely be remembered. All of these stories contain mystery, intrigue, and a dark view into the looking glass of our reality. They all also have no happy endings. If you like videos like these, please hit subscribe and the bell icon to get notified whenever I post a new video. You can go into the description as well to support me directly and get uncut content, unreleased content that's exclusive to premium pages, as well as deleted videos. You can check out everything in there and get discounts on energy, join the Discord, and so much more. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you liked this one, if you want to see more like it as well, by the way. Stay safe out there. And remember, if it bleeds, it leads.